Looks like I am live. All right. Welcome. This is episode number two of the Pre-Podcast Podcast, where we learn how to do podcasts and we still share some information to make this bearable, to make this digestible. All right. So last week we were talking about a lot of topics. We started on the education and got into the whole idea of why haven't we designed it better? Why haven't we made it better? And I guess to add to the last week's, we decided that it doesn't behoove people with money invested in the current system to change it. So that there is our problem. We don't see progress because progress needs to involve capital gains to the people that have invested into the current system. And that goes for anything. I'm not talking about anything in specificity. Yeah. But we are discussing about what it looks like. It's the analysis of what's currently going on. So this week, you guys are seeing it on the screen. The nature of the firm, part 1, because I gotta say I got into this week, and man, it's a hard read. Not necessarily because of the big words and big concepts and all, but just the fact that there's just so much to cover. I mean, especially if you don't if you think a business is just sell and make, or make and sell, there's definitely a lot more to it, a lot more psychology, a lot more what humans decide. It's because we're so complex as a creature in this world. This has to be complex. Okay, so this first reading we're gonna do is called "Closest Penguin or Linux and the Nature of the Firm," by Yonkai Benklers. I believe he's a Harvard professor. Professor of law in New York University School of Law. And his research, the research is it's pretty old research, but honestly, not with all this talk of Industry 4.0 and the Internet of Things and how production is going to be a lot more animated. I'm sure it's going to be animated to some degree, but automated. We need to discuss about how this is going to affect everyone, not just those with the ability to manage or govern or be the leaders of a group. So we'll start with the abstract. I think I'm just going to go ahead and do reading by reading, because we do really have to cover that if we want to get into the subject. I mean, as someone that didn't really study the process of business in school or anything, and I'm just coming in as a independent reader, reading this through, it's just going to be a long process, man. It's got to be. And I hope I convey enough of this information. I do have this up on my Discord channel as in the section of books to read, under P2P, that's peer-to-peer production. So if you do want to take it out and read it for yourself and see what's up, maybe you have a different perspective, go ahead and ask away for the Discord. I'll send out the Discord. I have it open for right now, so please don't abuse it. Please, I beg you, don't abuse it. But if you're listening to this, be free to either DM me on Instagram, or hell, send me a TikTok if you're more of a video guy. But yeah, check out my channel socials, and you can get me through that. All right, let's go into this. So, like any paper, it starts with an abstract. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna drop this now that we're starting with the info here. I'm gonna drop this volume. Hopefully, that's not too much of a drop. Okay, that should be good. So the abstract is, basically the overall synopsis of what this paper is going to do. And honestly, you could just read the abstract and get a pretty good idea of what's going on. I mean, it starts with identifying what kind of production values there are there, and it outlines there are two modes of production. You have the employees in a firm, followed by managerial hierarchies, and or as individuals in markets where the price of the objects in the market signal the individuals on how to progress. So basically freelancing, right? You get corporate world with, big boy jobs, a lot of people refer to them, or freelancers on individual in the markets that are competing against other individuals in those same markets. Then the paper continues on to say that there's actually a third one now. I don't really know if this was created in the third one because of the interconnectivity of communication and how it's jumped and leaped and bound with no borders. But I believe that's why. And yeah, they call it here. They refer to it as a digital network, is a method of production in a digitally networked environment. So digitally networked environment, right? So the internet, email, social media networks, that kind of stuff. And they refer to it at the end of the day. They refer to it as commons-based peer production. So peer to peer. This would lead us, and it continues on to say, this will lead us into a much broader socioeconomic phenomenon through production and efficiency. So basically saying, because everything's going to be automated, the amount of agents to produce the amount of agents and resources to produce a certain amount of goods will be disproportional to the amount of goods being outputted. So meaning there's got to be an upgrade to that system. And here it's so it goes from actually identifying the dichotomy of Ronald Coase and Oliver Williamson, and they try to bridge it all together into that third mode of production. So they use open source software as the first, I guess, methodology behind peer-to-peer production, where people are making bits and pieces of the software, and then at the end of the day, when you combine them, it creates the whole of the software. But then again, it opens up the software so that those individual pieces could be used somewhere else in other projects, and that creates a sense of branding in the ecosystem. So the parts that you make is branded with you yourself and what you can do, and then that can go on into other projects, and people will come, find you to make that project again, or make it, or improve it, or build upon it. So it definitely accelerates the production process. And then it says here, the results has been the emergence of a vibrant, innovative, and productive collaboration whose participants are not organized in firms and do not choose their projects in response to price signals. So really, there's other reasons for people to actually work this way, where it becomes more of a personal love or passion for a subject. You see the same gains, not necessarily in monetary value, but in value throughout that ecosystem. So you're creating not just the dollars for dollars of something. You're making the dollars you want, for what the project needs that price to be. But then you're also creating a background value of wealth in your own profession. So you're pretty much combining your CV or your resume into that production field and gaining a positive well-being through the ecosystem, so that other people can also see, hey, this guy's actually working, he's actually want to do things. And to some degree, you'll find that it becomes about passion, and that passion is going to be shown through your work and how productive you are and how efficient you are. Now, it stands to reason that not everyone's going to be this way, right? There's a lot of different values in people's minds, and that's kind of what the peer-to-peer production needs to work towards, a place where not everything has to be what you might call professional. It's not about being professional in a certain degree, or like, hey, you're wearing the coolest new tie, or you're tying your knot on your tie the coolest way possible to gain financial stability or anything. It doesn't need to be like that anymore. You'll just have different sectors of someone's personal life or personal professional life where it becomes about work, to where that professional life becomes a lot more individualized, a lot more separated between, but also all building towards one independent brand. Now we're calling it brand here because honestly I don't really know any other word for it, but it's basically all you can do and what you can do for production in any means. It doesn't matter what field you are, what industry you are. It could be software developers, it could be whatever. It's the lines are no longer so defined because of the amount of automation that can happen, because of the amount of interconnectivity that we can have with each other in a quote in for Industrial Revolution 4.0. And I feel like companies are doing this, but they're using it within their company, so they don't want to dissolve the company as a whole as you see it. Because honestly, that's right now. That's where money is made. That is where public money goes into the markets and is made. That's why so many people like to be public, because it gives them a lot of liquidity, and that's I'm not gonna say that's bad or anything. That's smart. That's what you should be doing, because that is how the things are going right now. Um, uh, but to identify to or to not to identify to demeanor each individual worker in that business, and to just say here's the money, uh, give me my production value. It's a little naive to think that that's how we should continue forward. I mean, just take a look at this year, right? 2020. People are needed to all of a sudden have to have an office in their house, to continue working. Now, I'm not saying have to, as in you need to in order to work, otherwise you can't work. It's just it was a lot more convenient to make an office at your home and start working from home. And you all know production loves convenience, and honestly, I love convenience too. Who wants to have to work more than they need to? Honestly. Now, between need and want, that's a very different definition. Like, I want to work. I want to create things. I want to make production in this world, and leave a mark of some sort, because, well, honestly, that's all we can do at the end of the day. Um, but uh, but yeah, we just gotta understand that the hierarchy thing is it's got to change if we want to make this environment a lot more hospitable to everyone, all kinds of people, not just the ones that are able to press buttons. All right, let's see. I'm moving forward here. Yeah, see, it says here you need to find the facts in the example of a broader social economic phenomenon, which is basically what we're seeing right now. I mean, like I said, pandemic has given this nitro, man. It has given this idea nitro, and now tech is booming, because people see that in the future we need this type of environment, and well, any tech that's moving towards that in any capacity is gaining traction because people see it. The smart money is seeing it. So yeah, he's uh Benkler here calls it commons-based beer production, and it's distinguished from property and contract-based models of firms and markets. The central characteristic of the group is the group of individuals successfully collaborating on large-scale projects following a diverse cluster of motivational drives and social signals, rather than either market price or managerial command. So this is basically like the smart way of saying what I just elaborated to, where it becomes so much more about the individual successfully collaborating with each other based on motivations and social signals. Social signals being their interest, right? What they actually want to produce in this world and have their name stuck on. Um, and in the book, so this is still the abstract, but in the book, or in the essay to follow, he outlines uh, what the physical what is it, the production and information or culture, where the physical capital necessary for that production is better distributed, using computers or communications capabilities, instead of concentrated in one area and then dispersed out in individual uh, groups or committees within the organization. So it's like, instead of compartmentalizing, people are able to handle all the information needed to progress the project forward, rather than progress their individual standing in that company. Now, the individual standing in that company needs to be, it needs to be a thing, because that's how people are valued. That's how they feel valued. So there needs to be a change in that for sure. This mode of production is better than firms and markets for two reasons. He lines out two reasons for this. And the first is it better identifies and assigns the human capital to information and cultural production processes. So everything anyone can output, it gives it a better outcome to those two ideas, and it's a lot more effective rate in which that specific. Let's see, that specific. Where is it? Culture. Yeah, the specific information opportunity and the cost of it. So I mean that way you can find someone that has the best outcome on the chart they've been assigned, on the the part of the project they need to complete. That way you're not giving someone that doesn't know what they're doing in a specific topic, that specific topic. You get your best bang out of your buck for each person, and as long as people identify and know who they are and know what they're doing, you should be able to trust that they'll know what that is. Oh, hey, movie 1974. Hey, thanks for the follow. Thanks for following along. I'm trying to do my best here. I don't have my Chatterino turned on. I hope you're not saying too much. Then again, I do hope you're saying stuff. Okay. All right. So yeah, that's the first reason why this mode needs to be identified as better than the markets or firms. Markets being freelancing, and firms being companies. The second is that it substantially increases the returns. The allocation efficiency. Just by that alone, it's like you're not wasting all this time. Trying to get manager to go through other processes, then come back to the worker and have the work be done and finalized to the other side of the other side of the contract. So he goes on to explain here, removing property and contract as the organizing principle of collaboration substantially reduces transaction costs involved in allowing these large clusters of potential contributors to review and select which resources to work on, for which projects and with which collaborators. See, that whole time of trying to choose people to do things, the people themselves can choose what they can do and what they can't, because you're trusting them to know that they want to, increase their production value, because their production value is equal exactly to what they want to do. Let's see. There's also potential for substantial allocation gains, right? Yeah. Article concludes with an overall of how these models use a variety of technological and social strategies to overcome the collective action problems. Collective action problems being, again, that whole process of going from top to bottom and getting the information you need through to the workers from the managerial standpoint. Usually solved in managerial and market-based systems by property, contract, and managerial commands. That no longer is an issue in this type of working. And guys, this is just the abstract. We've been talking about a lot of key points that need to happen, and it's just the abstract. I'm sure we're going to get into a lot more detail on these specific outcomes, these specific reasons that they give for a better third version of doing business. I mean, for instance, the examples they give here, as I don't think I'm actually there yet. Let's see. Model. Yeah, no, it's coming down the line. Okay. So the abstract, yeah. I mean, the intertwine and projects do not get finished as efficiently as possible. Yeah, and that just hits back to what our point here. I'm just going over my notes. Okay, so then the introduction starts. It starts by telling the story of GM, right? So GM has committees that do different tasks within the company to make sure the company continues to thrive. And it says the committee members would probably have been locked up in psychiatric ward. He's saying, if the committee members decided, hey, why don't we just let the people decide? Why don't we just let the groups in this large company, because it's a large company, right? Why don't we let the groups in this large company be their own bosses and tell us what they want to do to increase the value of their worth within the company? Now, again, this hits back to the point of big companies are just going to want to be the umbrella in which all this type of work happens instead of the overall human ecosystem. They want to confine that value into their company. But yeah, they're saying they would have been thrown into the psych ward, telling that they are no longer fit for business duty. What? And it says here, if Senator McCarthy or the House Un-American Activities Committee did not get them first, then the whole the whole market would get them. But actually, then it goes on to say that in September of 2000, The President's Information Technology Advisory Committee recommended that the federal government back open source software as a strategy national choice to sustain the U.S. lead in critical software development. Yeah, they identified something because they saw how much more effective it could be in the short time span. Like they saw that because other countries are doing different methods of more, draconian measures, of more forcing the efficiency out of people, they realized that if they force the efficiency out of people in a democratic way, it would have to be to where a lot of the value, a lot of the background wealth has to be put back into the individual. That way, it increases their production and their worth over their lifetime. And yeah, sure enough, that's what they were saying. Yeah, like the economic engine of the world's most advanced economies, in particular that of the United States, we are beginning to take notice of a hardy, persistent, and quite amazing phenomenon. This goes back to that. They call it a phenomenon because it's not something anyone has made. It's just something that has been identified inside of the markets. A new model of production has taken root, one that should not be there, at least according to our most widely held beliefs about economic behavior. Now, it shouldn't be there because the economic behavior, again, was tailored towards physical activity, towards a cost, an underlying cost of doing business. Well, with the internet and all these connectivity and the ability to buy a full on awesome gaming or rendering rig for under $5,000 is it's ludicrous. Someone could save for 6 months and have that value. Like, it's no longer about having to save for years to get that type of value. I mean, just take a look at the automotive industry, right? In order for you to buy a car in cash, you need to save at least for 10 years. The cheapest car out there is what, $35K? If anyone could correct me on that, but I think it's $35K for the cheapest vehicle out there. That's just insane. You could do so much production value from a computer. It's just the pricing is just insane. It's so available to everyone now, and it's ridiculous. Not everyone is that connected, and it's only going to get better, right? The connection of connecting all around the world is only going to get better. Now it's not about the 330 million in the U.S. It's about the 8 billion or 7 billion in the world. The markets have grown exponentially for small businesses, and honestly, I want to say, this is just me talking off the cuff here. But a lot of the restrictions that are being enforced right now are being heavily enforced on small businesses because the organizations do not trust small businesses to follow directions. The only reason large businesses being kept open, if you will, is that they'll follow restrictions. They'll put it in there. They have a swarm of lawyers out in the back writing stuff down so that they can cover their asses if something happens on their premises while the pandemic is going and people are getting infected. That's the one thing. They have the background wealth to be able to cover that type of expense, where small businesses do not. They're pretty much out in the open like a severed nerve, ready to get hit. And that's why there's so much push towards regulating that business. But at the end of the day, it's that business, they shouldn't need to have that much covering of their butts, for the lack of vocabulary there. It's ridiculous that this is how it's become. We're talking about free markets here, but when free market is no longer a free market because of the inequality in background noise and background resources, like lawyer ability, defense capabilities, economic defense capabilities. I mean, it's just it's no longer about what you see on the paper, but about what happens after that paper's written. It's a lot more about that background noise. So here we go. We're gonna go into the introduction now. Now this is the introduction of the paper. He's talking about, again, the whole critical role in software development, and how this has connected it so well. And I mean, it makes sense that it would be in software, right? Because software is really what's building everything around us. Hardware helps because it merges the software into our real world. But software really is where this is going to boom. So here we go. I think I lost my place. I should not. The 20th century American would say the concept comes together, collaborate, accomplish. Right? Yeah. It should not, the intuitions of the late 20th century American would say, be the case that thousands of volunteers will come together to collaborate in a complex economic project. It certainly should not be the case that these volunteers will beat the largest and best financial business enterprises in the world at their own game. And yeah, that's what software has done. It has allowed that to happen. The emergence of the free software, if you will, free here being identified as open. So here there's a underlining here, free software and open source software interchangeably in the article, right? So it's using free software as open source software, meaning someone can grab any part of it and use it for something else. So it says those who consider the phenomenon as first and foremost involving political values, to wit, freedom, use the former, and self-conscious contradictions to those who focus on economic significance, right? So economic significance being here the market value you want to put on it, and the political values here, and the freedom, and the political values and freedom being the background noise. And again, it becomes about here becomes about this magic trick, right? Where the magic trick is like the magician's telling you, hey, look over here, while he's doing something else on the other side, right? And I don't know, it's not being echoed throughout the economy, so everyone's that is how businesses are dying. Here it goes back. So he uses the examples of like the GNU Linux operating software, the Apache web server, Perl, SendMail, and Bind. Those are just some examples where the software was open sourced and has thrived because of it. So in the 1930s, Ron Coase, which is like one of the main people researched about to make this essay, wrote the article "The Nature of the Firm," in which he explains why firms, which is like firms, the companies, using a managerial command system, happened, like why that happened. And then he goes on to say the concept of transaction costs, that is, that there are costs associated with defining and enforcing property and contract rights. So those are those costs that are underlying to business, like the minimum cost you'll have to do to start a business, right? Giving you, again, the opposite of saying, oh, I need to have capital before I can start a business. Now, nowadays, social media is making it, because social media is technically free and you're able to use it without any monetary value at it. Again, I'm going to add that because we are the product, that's why it's free. But because it's free, we're able to connect with people, and people are really the lifeblood of business. They are the lifeblood of what makes a business happen. So that's why there's so much ad revenue in the markets, because ads attract people, and people are the real value. Which are necessary incident of organizing any activity on a market model, right? So that's like the market model is basically saying that that's the underlying cost you need to start value on a market. So he goes on to explain that the emergence and limits of firms are different with organized production through markets versus firms. People use the markets when the gains from them are there. But when the gains are not there and the firm outmatches those gains, well, the opposite would be true, right? So the opposite meaning that it would that firm will no longer have value in the market, and that's really what happens when you get when you get a firm that no longer has value for that market, but they still have customers. Yeah, they're able to survive, to stay up above the water. But they're not really gaining any background value, and that's really where the value is. Financial value lets you do things on the front end, but that background wealth is what lets you increase your clout, if you will, on people. And obviously, when it's the opposite, firms will rise to it because they are the ones getting that background value, as opposed to a small business where they're selling stuff. They have the income coming in, but they're not actually creating any wealth in the background. There's no fundamentals being grown. I hope my volume is good. It should be good. All right, continuing on here. Any individual firm would stop growing when its organization cost exceeds the organization cost of a formerly newly formed smaller firm. So when that firm that has existed for a few years now no longer is making enough value in that background that I was telling you about, and it's just creating that first initial spurt of income to keep it above water. At that point, that's when a smaller firm that is able to create value in the background. So basically, in my opinion, it's giving out free, giving out things for free to the public so that the public understands that, hey, look at this company. It's new. It's trying to do something new. Check it out. It's cooler. The whole cooler aspect of it, gaining traction, gaining follows, if you will. That's when that smaller firm is going to outpace the regular firm and most likely either eat it up or destroy it from the markets. So, like this insight here, he explains that Oliver Williamson was really the guy that coined it and goes a lot more in depth into it. And he goes into the relationship between markets and managerial hierarchies and the models of organizing production. So just how current firms work and how they should work because their values are in place. But the emergence of that free software that we were talking about, substantial force in the software development world poses a puzzle for this conception. So this conception of the organizing theory that Williamson said, free software completely destroys that, because now you're not competing to create something unique and better than anyone else. You're competing again for that background wealth. That background wealth being initially enforced through free software, which a lot of people think, oh snap, I can use this software here that does something already, break it apart, use its individual pieces, and make something else. So in this sense, it's kind of like what TikTok is doing with production value. I mean, a lot of people argue that the production value and a lot of high quality things, the value itself is going down, but the amount of value you need to put into that production to create it is staying stagnant. Still that high value, but the outcome is becoming diminished because there's this free software out there. Free software, again, going to open software that helps you do it better. I mean, not better, but it helps you do it quicker and a lot more catchy. So back in I think it was 2014, the short clips were a big thing. Vine really got going because of it. There was that short little clip where people were like scrolling and they saw it, they interacted it for 15 seconds, they loved it, hit that like and moved on, right? It was like a quick process. And TikTok really is taking control of that right now, and it's adding to it so that production value is cheaper. But if you do put in some of that old style production value back into it, where you're having all these other people help you out in this group of individuals working on a TikTok, the production value again is up there in the high quality standards like we see in Super Bowl commercials and such. But that initial cost is a lot less. You're getting a lot more bang for your buck. Now there is the whole side of the whole aspect of people are just copying trends and going to the trend, and it becomes about this fight for doing the trends as quickly as possible with the highest production value. And honestly, that's what it's going to be, because that's how you get people's attention. Again, growing that background information or the background wealth that we've been discussing here. And that's how it's going to keep going. So a lot of people think TikTok is really jumping in on that bandwagon. They've seen this. They know that the people are the value, and they're going full speed ahead on it. So yeah, the open software project does not rely on markets or managerial hierarchies to organize that production. That production is organized because the people doing it actually want to do it. They actually want to spend times from their lives that is limited and do these things. They're hitting on the passion. So programmers do not generally participate in a project because someone who is their boss told them to. Though sometimes they do because, it's a job. They do not generally participate in a project because someone offers them a price to do so, even though they do because, again, they have a job. Though some participants do focus on a long-term appropriation through money-oriented activities. So that long-term appropriation of skills and getting paid for it, that's like the holy grail of a freelancer, right? Like for me, when I got out of school, that's exactly what I looked for. I might not have the fanciest paying job. I was getting paid $12 an hour after graduating, but I was learning how to 3D print in SLA, SMA, Um, the latest and greatest 3D printers, and I learned that for 2 years, so now I have that value in my background of values. So there you go. I mean, it becomes like at some point in this current hierarchy, it becomes about sacrifice, right? Like the time you do something, that's not necessarily towards a traditional career, you could say, is giving you that background wealth that it's invaluable. So let's see, through participants to focus on a long-term appropriation through money-oriented activities. Yeah, like consulting or service contracts, right? So because you have that extra background wealth, you can do things other than what your career is in. Again, giving you value in this new system of, can you identify what you can do and what you can't, and can you execute it? But the critical mass participation in projects cannot be explained by the direct presence of a price or even a future monetary return. See, you can't do it because it's that background value. Particularly in the all-important micro level decisions regarding selection of projects to which participants contribute. Yeah, so it's like a selection of projects, not necessarily one big project you have to finish off, if that's not what your job is, right? If your job is just to finish this one segment, you finish it, you move on, you get going. Again, it's about that production value. Like resumes, I hate the idea that resumes should be 1 to 2 pages. Like, dude, what? You mean you want to have my experience be on those 2 pages? If you can take the time to look at my resume and check out what my abilities are, why the hell do you still exist? Like, why does your company still exist if your HR department doesn't have that time to do that? You're too big. Period. You're too big. You're costing the overall cost of the economy. You're costing more than what you're providing. Period. So, in other words, programmers participate in free software projects without following the normal signals generated by market-based, firm-based, or hybrid-based models. Right. The programmers were already doing this because they when they finish a project, that project, their knowledge about how they build that project is already ingrained in their future projects because they already have it. It's that whole meme or movement about programmers just having to Google stuff. That's like the most simplistic way to explain this. All they have to do is Google stuff because they've done it before. Like, come on, the whole aspect of Googling, it's just about you knowing you've done it before, so you can do it in something else. Something else not in the field you were in initially, but in that same programming mindset. They're the first profession, I guess, the first typical profession to be able to do this and still retain value throughout. I would argue that the next one is designing, because there's just so many things you can go into. That design is no longer limited to a specific field. And that's what I hope to do in the future here moving forward. That's what I hope to do, to where design becomes a part of all the industries. It doesn't become its own industry. It is a segment within other industries of, intertwined value. All right. Yeah, we're getting here to part 1. We're going to finish off the introduction here and start off on reviewing part 1. And yeah, that was it. That's episode number 2. Hopefully this gives you interested into what this reading is all about. If you do want this reading, I have it. You can find it yourself as well. It is part of Yale's journal entries by Yonkai Benklers. You can also take a look at the nature of the firm, the original text on Ronald Coase regarding the dichotomies and how they're changing. He doesn't go through all the necessary things of today's world, so you might be losing a little bit of value there. So I would argue that you would have to just look at Benklers and see his analysis of both Ronald Coase and Oliver Williamson. But finishing off the intro here, it really does go back to saying the whole organization of work and what it means and what value it can derive from the markets and or the ecosystem. So yeah, so the puzzle here, they explain it as a puzzle, has attracted increased attention from economists and participants in the practice, trying to understand their own success and its sustainability given widespread contrary intuitions. Lerner and Tyrrell present the best overarching view of the range of diverse micro motivations that drive free software developers. So these two guys, again, they went straight into the software side of things, but they're really using a precedent to identify what it is that makes the value grow in that fashion. Because again, it's a discovered phenomenon. They even refer to it as a phenomenon. It's not something someone decided to say, hey, let's do it this way. It's literally what has happened when we've increased our interconnectivity through wireless means. Like no more physical worth is being put into communication because it's all on, you could say, servers. So servers are really what's being now the underlying, but now that's that price compared to the last price is nominal. It's not, you can't even put any value on or any weight on it. So this diversity, right, the diversity of micro motivations, somewhat more formalized and generalized, plays an important role in their own analysis, right? So they write about the hacker ethic, the ethic that I believe, oh shoot, I don't have that in my notes. The hacker ethic. Yeah, the hacker ethic, where they're using bits and pieces of software to use it on other type of things and creating something new with them. And as sociological phenomenon to gift exchange system, the gift exchange systems. Other writing has focused on the special characteristics of software as an object of production. In this paper, he approaches the puzzle by departing from free software. So he uses it to grab, I guess, the base formula of what happens in free software, like why free software has been like that. And he finds all these things like communication, organizational value, diversity value within the software. All those values, he finds it, removes free software from it, and tries to, overlay it on something else. So that'll be very interesting. I would love to get into that soon. We'll just see that on a different episode. Generalized from the phenomenon of free software suggests that what makes large-scale collaborations in many information production fields sustainable and productive in the digitally networked environment, without reliance either on markets or managerial hierarchy. So, hence the title of the book. So that's really where we want to get the gist of it, and how he grabs those basic blocks and overlays them onto different fields or different outcomes. He departs from this free software, but uses those special characteristics to find the formula. Really, it's about finding a formula, right? Yeah, so that's it. That's the introduction, guys. It's fascinating stuff. I've always had so Kid Rocket. He's not on today. But Kid Rocket, he really got me into this by talking to me about the overall aspects of this writing. But it's not until I went in and started reading that I'm actually starting to get it. I'm definitely gonna go through this entire read, and hopefully I extract some value out of it and give you all a nice little course on it here. Hopefully we can begin to better the system, make it better for those working. And this type of system even works for those that are that struggle to keep one particular set of values and just want to jump around and extract value from that. It really helps those type of people too out, and that's really what we want to do. We want to make an ecosystem where everyone is benefiting from it, not just the people that are good at a specific task. Because that just alienates everyone. It just alienates people, and it's no longer about countries or individual people. It's about everyone. It's about the world. It's about globalization, but in the right way, not in Let's exploit all the weak people so we can get more gains while we're here on this earth. No, no, not anymore. You're gonna get what you can get from a world that is in the current standing, not from a world from the future. You're not gonna be able to get more wealth from it because that's just bullshit. You're playing the game and winning because you're cheating. That's basically what it comes down to, gamer talk, and that's fucked up. All right, so yeah, part one. It begins with a general phenomenon, right? Describing it through stories, using analogies from what Benkler here has analyzed in his research, where tens of thousands of individuals can collaborate in 5-minute increments to to map the Mars craters, right? Or 250,000 people collaborating to create the most important news and commentary sites available in technology today, like Reddit and whatnot. Everyone coming in together saying, "Oh, I saw this somewhere else on the internet. Check it out, Reddit." Reddit is the central base, you know. And I kind of don't like how Reddit has been growing in company wise, because they know they're doing this, yet they're extracting value from these groups and keeping them to keeping it to themselves. Like that's you're pretty much using this the wrong way. And I guess that goes with the first to be in the market with it, right? But that's just nefarious, man. Like that's like now they're coming out with Reddit points, so you can buy things and gift them to people. Like, no, I've made these many posts, I've made you this much traffic, you give me that value for free and I'll pass it on to someone else. Like why do we have to pay for rewards? Like, what the hell, dude? Oh my god, that's like a double dip. That's double dipping the sauce, bro. That's double dipping the sauce. But whatever, Reddit's huge now. There's no stopping it now. And I don't think there's a way to change people in that business minds. So I don't know. I don't even know what to do to it. Yeah, so it's just talking about the different way how we can use collaborations like that. Like, there's 40,000 people collaborating to create a more efficient editing directory for the web than Yahoo. That's basically Google, right? And there's other examples, of course. But again, all these companies, the first ones to go to market, they're just abusing it. Instead of just making it better, they're abusing it because they offer something to the market. So they want to keep that value to themselves. Well, yeah, to a certain degree, man, but you can't expect to be getting like $5 million a year because you did that. Anyone could have done that, man. Anyone could have done that. It's just that they did it. You were the first there, and somehow that gives you more value in the market. Like, what? Monetary value, I mean. You've already got all this background value. Why do you have so much market in the value, like upfront value? And again, because old business models don't tend to evolve quickly, they justify it by saying, "Hey, that's my work. I did it. Here it is. Here are the papers." Again, because that background value can't be quantized. It's getting there, though. It's getting there. With AI, people are starting to see how much value is actually in the background now, and they're starting to get smart on it. Yeah, so at the end of the day, all these ideas, he asks that there's a question, the question is how we should understand these instances of social productivity behavior, how we should think about their economic value, how we should understand the dynamics that make them possible and make them tick, right? Because as soon as we understand those type of things, we understand that the value given to a company in the front is way overpriced because they have so much value in the background. And that will hopefully start to create a more balanced ecosystem. Hopefully. Especially with data, how much data people use, how much time they're spending on the internet. We need to get smart on it. We need to get smart on it. Smart on it to make it better, not to exploit it for your own financial gain. Yeah, and then it explains the framework to make it work is in part 2, and it kind of just outlines everything as we go through it. But I think we're going to call it there for today. Hopefully that gives you enough of an understanding of what's going on with this paper. We could get you guys to read it. It is a thick read. You'll have to read it a few times. I apologize for that. But these smarty pants don't want to dumb it down because they want to stroke their egos. Or, I don't know. I don't know why else they wouldn't. Is what are they? Do they want to seem smart for everyone else so that they are valued more? Like, I don't know, man. Either way, we're gonna try to get through this. I hope I see you all on the next episode. This was episode 2 of the Pre-Podcast Podcast, talking about the nature of the firm and how Benkler analyzes it. Hope I see you all next week. For now, have a good week, and you go beat Monday's ass. See ya.